Hello and welcome back to our channel Food Discoveries. And today we will be making goulash, traditional Czech recipe that originated in Hungary and then spread to Central Europe, to the countries like Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, Austria, Germany. It's basically a beef stew with a lot of onion, some spices, dark beer, bread and garlic, and that's about it. We will need some beef meat, typically shoulder, or any kind of meat that is actually not very nice to make steaks from because of all the silver skin and tendons. Like you see here at mine has many tendons in, but it absolutely doesn't matter because we'll still be cutting the meat in cubes and will be all easily cut out. And the softer tendons will actually break down during cooking, so we don't need to cut everything out. But like you see here, this piece of silver skin is really tough, so we need to get rid of that. Try not to waste a lot of meat. And like you see, this piece of silver skin was actually tender, so I decided to leave it. And like always, you pick the size and then stick to it, so we have all pieces of meat cooking at the very same rate. After you cut your meat to cubes, we'll need some onion, big yellow onions I use for this recipe. And we will need the very same amount of onion like we do have a meat, so it's 1:1 ratio. The easiest way to peel the onion is to cut it in half, cut the sides, and then grab the corner and just take the whole part off. The size of the cut of the onion doesn't really matter, but the smaller the easier will break down, so I try to make small cubes. I prepare all the onion in a pot on the side before cooking. And here we have our garlic that we need to prepare. About 10 to 12 big cloves of garlic, depends how strong your garlic is. Then we use a big pot so we can accommodate all of our ingredients, which in my case will be a lot. 2.5 kilos of meat, 2.5 kilos of onion, and about 2 liters of dark beer. So we throw in some pork fat. We don't use butter or oil for this recipe. Pork fat will give it much nicer flavor, and you can bring it up to much higher heat. And when the pork fat is very hot, we put in all our onion, some salt, because it will draw the moisture off the onion, that it will help a lot. And we caramelize. This process will take a little bit longer because we have a lot of onion here. Also for this part I like to put half of a chili. And when we put it in the oil like this in the beginning, it will have plenty of time to dissolve all the spiciness and the flavor into that. I'd recommend like half a teaspoon of cayenne for this amount. It needs to be a little bit spicy. And when the onion is ready, we put all the meat in and sear it. We put 2 bay leaves, and we need some juniper berries. I use 10 juniper berries. We crush them with the side of the knife and then cut them to very small pieces. We really need the small pieces because it's not gonna break down during cooking. So we add 1/3 of the total beer amount, stir it in, let the alcohol cook out a little bit. We use dark beer for this recipe because it's sweeter, it's much sweeter than a normal pilsner. Please don't use Weiss beer for this because it will totally ruin the recipe. There's a lot of yeast in the Weiss beer, which we don't want in goulash. So after about 10 minutes, it looks much more different. There's no more bubbles forming up. So we put some sweet paprika, 2 big spoons in my case here. Some smoked Hungarian paprika, also 2 big spoons. You can find smoked paprika everywhere. In a better supermarket you always should have smoked paprika. Then we put our juniper in that we crushed before and cut to the small pieces. Some ground caraway seeds. Some Majorana leaves, dried Majorana leaves, which is a type of oregano. About 6 big cloves of garlic. We need a big spoon of tomato puree, If you don't have a tomato puree like me, you're stupid and you forget to buy it, you can substitute with a little bit of ketchup. But don't use a lot of ketchup because that's actually very sweet. We add salt and freshly ground black pepper. Then we cover the pot and go to prepare the rest of the ingredients, which in this case we'll need some German style bread. We cut into the very small pieces. We'll use this bread to thicken the sauce, so the smaller the better. And after about 10 minutes of cooking the goulash with its spices, we put all the bread inside. I use 3 slices, like first 3 slices of the big loaf. We put them in, stir it in, and because it was already cooking some time with the spices and the beer, the meat should have absorbed a little bit of those spices. We can put the rest of the beer inside, which in my case the total amount was about 2 liters of dark beer. Heat down to medium-low and leave just simmer until the meat is fork tender.
2 hours later.
We don't want the meat to start falling apart, so you need to keep checking it, but in my case this took just over 2 hours because I have very well aged meat. At the end of the cooking, if the sauce is still too liquid, you can add in a mixture of flour and water, like I did here, to make it a little bit thicker. If you do this, you need to keep it cooking for another 10 minutes at least on medium heat. And all the way at the end of the cooking process, we add the rest of the garlic. We add the rest of the garlic at the end like this, because the garlic actually loses flavor very quickly. So if you cook the garlic for an hour, it will almost dissolve into the flavors and you will not taste very much of the typical garlicky punch. And because we add the garlic like this at the end, we take it off the stove with no heat anymore. The residual heat will mellow the garlic, so in about 5 minutes the garlic will not be anywhere near as strong as after you just added it, so don't be afraid of that, because there's still a lot of heat in the sauce. And we can serve this dish in Czech Republic. We serve it with the nice, like German style bread. It's actually very similar to Czech style bread. Or we can serve it with potato pancakes, with some traditional Czech dumplings, which is basically bread cooked in the water. I will make a recipe later on for this. We can top it up with the freshly chopped onions. And here we go. Super nice. Meat is so tender that you can actually break it with a spoon. And those are the potato pancakes I just told you about. We'll show you how to make them in our next video. Enjoy your meal. And if you like this recipe, please don't hesitate to subscribe. We'll be bringing more and more good stuff. And bon appetit. See you next time.